Recording in progress.
That's your blurb. Yeah, there's Bill. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tirone, Reading's Conservation Administrator. This meeting will be conducted in person and remote format consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which further extend certain COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meetings until March 31st, 2025. Please note that all items listed may in fact be discussed on, please note, not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This agenda includes those matters which can be reasonably anticipated to be discussed at tonight's meeting. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded. All materials for this meeting are available at the following link that I will provide in the chat as soon as I'm finished with this script. And Brian Bowe, the commission chair, will facilitate this meeting. Please note that there will be a public comment period at the end of each hearing. Each vote taken during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. We'll begin with a roll call attendance and review of tonight's agenda. So Chairperson Bowe, can you please take over from there and review the agenda and take attendance? Okay, first the overview. We're going to start with a public hearing for an RDA for 167 Belmont Street. Then we're going to move to opening a hearing on notice of intent for 0 Cedar Swamp. We'll cover old new business and then get to discussion items, including several certificate of compliances, update on the conservation DPW meeting and so forth. Having said that, I'm now going to call everybody's name to get people to be sure that they can hear us and we can hear them. The order that I call your name in now will be the order that we vote in and take questions in. So starting it off, Walter.
Walter Talbot, member, present.
Bill.
Bill McCants, member, present.
Tony.
Tony Rodolakis, member, present.
Chirag.
Chirag Stalikar, present.
Craig.
Craig Catalfamo, member, present.
Martha.
Martha Moore, Vice Chair, present.
Brian Bowe, Chair, present.
And just for the record, it is 7:05.
Thank you. Okay, before we get to the first hearing, just a quick, we have 2 new members starting tonight. Craig, can you give us a very quick?
Craig Catalfamo, 11-year resident of Reading. And I look forward to hopefully contributing to this board and helping everybody out.
Yeah, sure.
My name is Chirag Stalikar. I'm about a 4-year resident of Reading. Happy to be part of this committee.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Then we'll jump right into the first hearing. This is opening public hearing on request for determination for 167 Belmont Street. I'll read the blurb. Chuck, you can bring up any plan or anything. This is a hearing on request for determination of applicability filed by Jeffrey Saar under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, 40, and or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to repair a structural upgrade of an existing rear family room. The upgrade consists of bringing the addition up to current building code to include repair of damage caused by carpenter ants. 4 hand-dug footings will be installed and the spoils will be used outside of the jurisdictional area. Additionally, the project will remove a small 6-by-6 foot exterior deck and replace it with a 17.5 by 10 foot deck with 4 hand-dug concrete footings. The existing stairs will remain. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office
16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867. And on the Conservation Division page, under Project by Year, Assessors Map 7, Lot 15, File Number 2024-3. Having said that, does anybody from the applicant want to explain your project to us?
How do you do? My name is Richard Kaminsky. I'm a registered engineer and I prepared this filing as well as the drawings that are associated with it. And Chuck, I want to make sure you got my green card emails.
I did.
Okay, good.
Yep.
There are 7, I should tell you, there are 7 missing somewhere in the post office. We had, I think, 23 total, and I think I got 16, which you have. So the other 7 are in the post office somewhere. So, but I didn't get a notice back that it was not deliverable or any of that. So I don't know where those.
Did you also send the tear off when they take those from you?
Yeah, the whole thing. Well, I didn't even touch it. I just brought the list to the post office. I filled out the back. That has my address, so they know where to send it. And the postal clerk took it from there. He did everything.
Okay, so we can prove that they were sent. We just have 6 that haven't been returned yet. So if those come in, just
it's
scan them and send it to us.
They might dribble in over time, but certainly I'll call you if they do come in. So
Okay.
anyway, just I want to get that out there. This is Mr. Saar. He and his family moved here from California last year, and they bought a home down the street here at 167 Belmont Street. Nice home. It has a family room, sunroom kind of addition on the back done by the previous owner. In the course of getting settled in, they noticed that the floor of the family room, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was kind of drifting downward. They retained a contractor who did some exploratory work and took the siding off the outside of the family room in the corner where it was suspect, found that it was eaten away, the wood was eaten away by carpenter ants. I mean, I think I might have put a photograph of that in my filing just so you know what I'm talking about. So this thing was dipping this way. So also I have a photograph there. We put temporary shoring underneath that corner until we could fix it. And he and his family have not used the room since, and we started this in the winter. So the filing is, excuse me, as was explained by the chairman, the project is to fix this family room, not only where the carpenter ants had eaten it away, but there are other suspect structural, questionable structural problems in the building. We're reinforcing the roof because the roof is substandard under the current building code requirements. The columns, and there's another photograph in there. I'm big on photographs, but you can see that the columns have to be replaced. Under each column, there's a footing that's not really a good footing. So we're removing the columns and the footings, and we're putting what we call sonotubes. I think you're all pretty much familiar with that. They're round concrete objects that sit down below grade 4 feet, and they're reinforced. So my point being, we're putting those in, but they're going to be dug by hand. So we don't get into any kind of an erosion issue. If you bring in a machine with a core auger kind of thing, this is all going to be done by hand. And as was explained in the description, all those spoils will be brought to the front of the home, away from the wetland area and distributed around. There's some work that we both looked at that particularly against the home that needs some updating, regrading kind of thing. And we're going to use the spoils in that area generally. Okay, in addition to that, we're going to fix that family room addition. But there's a small deck there, and as was explained, I'm removing the deck and I'm putting in a larger deck. It's a family, they have kids, you know, a deck is a deck. It's nice to have it on the back of the home, and the 6x6 was just too small. So we're replacing that totally using the same kind of hand dug concrete sonotubes to support it, and we're attaching it to the house and bringing the whole thing up to code. The existing stairs that are there, they're going to remain. The only change might be the framing behind the stairs. There's a small section of the deck that's existing between the stairs and the door the entry door to the second floor. It might be easier to take that little area out and reframe it because it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of framing by the contractor who did it. It'll be a little tough to reinforce it, so it might be just as easy to take that out. It's a minor issue, has nothing to do with anything other than help support the deck. Other than that, It's pretty straightforward. And, do you have anything you want to add to that description?
No.
Okay, we spoke to Chuck, or you spoke to Chuck, and he felt it would be appropriate to file a determination with the commission to make sure we're on, dotting every I, crossing every T, we're on solid ground. And then, excuse me, we measured and I think you're familiar with the area. There's a name for it, but the swamp area, it's really a statutory wetland, but it had a name,
Timberneck.
swamp, right? Doesn't it say swamp or something? I saw.
It does, Timberneck Swamp.
Okay, all right. Well, we measured it using the computer, maybe 60 feet that day we looked at it. And then the chairman and I walked it, and then he found an area of the grass. It looks like grass, but I guess it's going to be statutory wetland. As you walked on it, and this is lawn that you would cut, as you walked on it, it was very spongy. The water table was quite high there. So I guess we're going to be a little closer than the 60 feet, and I think we measured 40 something feet, maybe, if you remember that. I think it was about 40 feet. So there you are. You have the pictures of it.
I do. If you want to go through them, it's
Oh,
fine.
sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the area where, that's the existing 6x6 platform, the deck over the door there. That'll be removed, and then the new deck will go from the start of the stairs all the way to the left and stop just short of the corner of the home in that area. And this is all obviously in the back of the home. Now, that's the sunroom family room, and that's the temporary shoring we put in the corner to support that. I mean, you had to see how eaten away the carrying beams were. So we didn't fool around with it. So we came up with that shoring plan until we get permission to then repair the family room. That's the area where the ants, I've been doing this a long time, so I've seen a lot of rodent deterioration, ants, a lot of termite work. I've never seen carpenter ants eat away that much wood at one time. Usually, I have them in my own house. Carpenter ants generally, when they eat, they create like a pile of sawdust. I don't know why, but that's what they do. I've never seen carpenter ants do that. They ate, that's a double 2x10 right there. They ate right through it, as you can see. You can see it right there. And there's a picture of one of the columns. I think it's upside down.
That's upside down.
I think so. And why we're pulling the columns out, there it is. All they did is they didn't even tie, now, meaning the contractor who did this work, and I don't know how many years ago they did it. You can see that that's a piece of plywood that's quite bent. Now, that's a column that's supporting that section of the family room. So obviously that's got to all get taken out and replaced appropriately. It has a big bend in it. And that's a general view of the back of the house. It's very nice, a very nice area. And unfortunately, they moved in ready to start living, and they ran into a problem like this, but we'll fix it. We can fix it.
Okay, I think we're set. Just hang on.
Okay.
So we did a site visit just recently. Walter and Martha, do either one of you want to give a quick description of what we saw? Martha?
I was gonna give Walter a chance. We did see what you're describing there.
Yep.
We also walked back and saw that place where there's sort of a semicircle of, looks like replanted grass in that.
Yeah,
that
it's
area.
brighter. It's a brighter green color for some reason. Yeah.
And into the woods, we saw a lot of yard waste. Whoever was there before these homeowners has been just dumping the yard waste in the woods, and it's too close to the wetland. So that is one thing we're concerned about. And the town, for $25 a year, you can get a permit to take your stuff to the compost center. So it would be good to get some of that yard waste cleaned up down to sort of the level where it's becoming soil rather than just loose leaves and loose grass. So that's something we'd like to see. At least I would like to see. I think we saw some invasive vines and stuff like that. And just so you know, it's okay to work on invasives within the zone of natural vegetation. I'm not saying we would make that a requirement. That would be up to the commission, but just for education. People sometimes think they can't touch the vegetation in the zone of vegetation, but invasive species can be controlled even within the zone of natural vegetation. So if there are bittersweet vines killing your trees, you can cut the vines and prevent them from killing the trees. Right?
Absolutely right. And you can take it to the point up and until you decide to use chemicals. If you want to use chemicals to do this control, you have to come back to the commission and get permission.
If
So
they,
this is mechanical or hand removal.
if they cut the vines at the bottom, I mean, we looked at them kind of closely, so they grow right up the tree.
Yeah.
If we cut them at the bottom, are they gonna die for lack of water?
You want to cut a section out. So sometimes they always recommend cutting a section out. So like a 6-inch section. So make 2 cuts on the vine.
Okay,
Then you're good. Don't pull them down because you're likely to pull a limb down onto your head.
yeah,
And they'll fall out in a few years and
okay,
the tree will survive.
it's easy to do, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a feeling we were on this property when they were planning to build that 6-foot deck. Does that sound right to you, Chuck? It looks very familiar to me.
Okay.
Doesn't look familiar to you, huh? Okay,
If I may, I found, yeah, somebody did file a determination of this. I found the drawing or
uh-huh.
a sketch of it in the filing. I don't know where, maybe I was cruising on, I looked up the site online and I did, yeah, you're right. It was a while ago though. It was a few years, well, just a few years ago.
Since 2020, because that's when I joined the commission.
All right, yeah.
I'm not saying that is anything for or against being able to make the deck bigger, but are there rules about certificate of compliance before you can do another project? I don't know.
A request for determination. There's no sign off for that.
Okay, so if they got an RDA that was negative
Mhm.
and they built the deck, they're good to go. They can get another RDA with the new homeowner, no problem.
Yeah, there's no certificate of compliance process with an RDA, which is a request for determination of applicability.
Okay, good. I just walked into that backyard and said, I've been
No,
here.
no, yeah. Well, when I do something, I like to cruise online and see what's in record.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the registry. It was somewhere else. I found it. It
Yeah.
was some kind of sketch and I found the form, determination of applicability form. Somebody filled it out. It was done by a contract. I didn't recognize the name. But yeah, you're right.
That's all I can think of, but maybe Walter has other things he remembers.
Walter, do you have anything you want to add to that?
The only thing I'm going to comment is usually when we see a project like this, the wetlands borders are very accurately determined. It does seem like this construction is far away enough for that not to have to be done. But my concern was that in that upper left-hand part where the deck is going to go, there's a big tree with a very extensive, very large root system. I don't know what you're going to do about the foundation and the sonotubes around that.
Could you scroll back to that photograph of the back?
Yeah, but as you're facing the back of the house, the corner of the deck that's going to be in the left-hand side, 10 feet out or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's in the root system of the big tree that's.
Oh, in the root system.
Yeah. Remember, we talked about that and you said you'd have to find a place to.
You're talking about the tree where to the left where the chairs are,
Yes,
Yes,
root system. Okay.
yes. It's
Okay.
right, it's right off the picture.
Yeah, I can see, where did okay, I didn't measure, where does 10 feet fall relative to the roots? I mean, is it well into them?
yes.
Okay, what I can do is I can move the sonotube and cantilever the beam over the top so I don't have to touch the roots.
You can do whatever you want to decide.
But I'm just saying, I can do that. I can move the sonotube over and the 6x10 that's carrying it, I can cantilever it over so we don't have to get near the roots. So I can fix that.
Walter, do you have anything else?
That's was my major concern.
Okay, one thing I want to add is towards the back of the house on the right-hand side of this picture, kind of back beyond that last post, there's a drain sticking up from the ground about 5 inches. Do you know what that is?
I'm sorry, I don't. I don't know why it's there. No, I'm sorry.
I just didn't know if it was tied to some underground system, something we should be aware of.
That's a good question. We've been wondering that ourselves. So.
Okay. So, Bill, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing described here is, well, first of all, let me ask this. Are we talking about grass all the way through the ZNV? The zone of natural vegetation is just grass up to the wetland?
So I'm going to answer that carefully. So from where the wetland is delineated on the GIS.
Yeah.
It is not grass all the way to that. There is a boundary layer of vegetation. There's a lot of yard waste in that layer, but there is a lot of vegetation back there. The question becomes this semicircle of grass that's very soggy.
Yeah.
If that is wetland, and I don't know that it is, but if that is wetland of some sort, then obviously that's in front of the vegetation boundary.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as you can imagine, right, it's just standard for us, section 3D, ZNV. I was thinking, of course, about previously disturbed ZNV shall be restored to a naturally vegetated state to the maximum extent feasible as determined by the commission, including but not limited to requiring a buffer strip be created where none currently exists. And as you know, Brian, we've also seen situations where we're not sure if very soggy grass is a wetland, and there we get some guidance from the wetlands protection regs where it says, this is in 10.55 of the state regs, where an area has been disturbed by cutting, filling, or cultivation, the boundaries align within which there are indicators of saturated or inundated conditions sufficient to support a predominance of wetland indicator plants, or credible evidence from a competent source that the area supported or would support under undisturbed conditions a predominance of wetland indicator plants prior to the disturbance. So, Brian, we may be in the latter situation. And, you know, the question is, do we need credible evidence from a competent source that this soggy area you're referring to would, under undisturbed conditions, support predominance of wetland indicator plants, in which case that affects where the ZNV is and where we would expect explicitly under the local regs a buffer strip of some sort. And to be clear, when we talk about that, we're talking about a multi-part buffer strip. We normally look for ground cover, bush, and tree. That's been standard around town. So these are all things I'm just putting out as commonly discussed in a situation like this. That's my comment for now.
Thank you. Tony, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I have no questions at this time.
From my memory of the site visit for the previous RDA, my memory is that that backyard was heavily used by kids and it did not have a good lawn. And I'm guessing that the previous owners tried to seed the grass to make it more sellable. And that's why that patch of grass looks different. But it might have been moss or something in the back there that they replaced with grass. But that's just sort of my sense of what that property was. But I don't have
a buffer. Are you talking a buffer, plant some tree? We do a site walk, we evaluate, it's about this area, because that's what we did. We walked around, we felt it's spongy, as you recall. So what would you be suggesting, that we put some plantings around that so then it can just grow naturally, and if
Well, so
wetland vegetation wants to grow in there?
that's a little premature.
Well, he got me.
I know, but for the question of.
Okay.
But I think Mr. Saw has something you want.
Yeah.
You come to the
Yes.
scene, please.
In regards to the grass, we did plant that.
Oh, you did, okay.
So if, I apologize if we did something wrong with that. But I just want you guys to know that the new grass, yeah, we were like.
What was
hey, it's
there
all
before
dirt.
you did the grass? Just
Dirt.
Dirt, yeah,
Just
yeah,
dirt.
yeah, yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay. That's good news.
So then the question is whether we want to go further to determine if that area is wetland or not. We could go out there with an auger and check out the soil. That would be a commission.
Well, you'd have to have a wetland scientist go in there, take auger and see if it's wetland soils.
That is,
How about we cut to the chase and say, probably it is. Why don't we plan on doing the buffer now?
is that all right with the homeowner?
Well, we gotta get they're not living in this. So it's, I think, we gotta get this started. So, I mean, by the time I go out and hire a wetlands person, come in, we argue, we back and forth, another meeting or two, it's gonna be the end of the summer and they still can't use their room. So my thought is, I mean, we walk, so, I mean, it's really spongy. Half of that, I think, is a very high water table too. So that whole area, I think, is soft. If we collectively can agree on the area, how much the area you planted
Oh,
grass.
yeah.
Okay, let's cut to the chase and say, yeah, that's a wetland. And then now the buffer idea, I don't know what's involved in that. Does that mean planting some trees around the perimeter of it? So the area that it encloses is able to grow, if it's gonna grow a wetland plant of some sort? Is that what he means by a buffer?
They want to be careful because if in fact we're going to consider that, you're going to consider that wetland, then that changes your distances. And
Yeah, I think you and I measured about 40 feet.
we too. So we don't want to just jump to that.
So Brian, in the application, the applicant did ask the commission to determine whether the area depicted in the plans and or map referenced below is an area subject to the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. So that came in with the application.
Yeah.
So are you saying since this is closer, now what are we looking, like a notice of intent?
So if we determine that it is under our jurisdiction, then it would go to a notice of intent.
Oh, wow.
If we decide that it's not, there'll be some conditions and what have you, but you wouldn't have to go to a notice of intent.
So Brian, what we would be determining is that the work is within our jurisdiction and within the buffer zone, but is unlikely to alter the resource area, therefore can be a negative determination.
Yeah.
You understand that lingo? So that wouldn't require a notice of intent.
Right. Which would be better for you folks.
I like his idea.
So does anybody else in the commission have anything to add to this before we try and get a motion out?
I'm just thinking in that area, the grass you planted might survive, or it might, because it's shady and wet back there, not grow as well as if you did put some plantings in. And your idea of plantings around the perimeter is not really what we would be talking about. We would be talking about like closer to the back wall, put in some shrubs and ground cover or something like that, maybe a tree, but you know, you don't want to have trees like this in a big open space here that all the invasives can go take over. You want to, you know, like
Oh, you mean do a regular planting, like a wetland planting?
something like that. If that's the direction we were going to go, that's what you're kind of envisioning.
Oh, that's very doable.
Pulling the natural vegetation line forward into the backyard a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got a big enough backyard. I don't think you're losing a lot if you added a few shrubs and
Yeah,
things against the back.
That's very
edge
doable.
there.
We've done that. That's very doable.
Um,
See what that, you know what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay.
So does that sound practical to you, Chuck?
We've been in this place before and typically, you know, where lawn has been pushed down into the wetland area or close into the buffer and asked for a vegetated buffer strip. So that is pretty common for the Conservation Commission to ask. But where to end it as we're walking out of the wetland and going towards the house is what I'm wondering. And I understand that you have been waiting, but this seems to be a new twist. And I would say that it would be reasonable to ask to develop a plan instead of just kind of coming up with one, you know, shooting from the hip with a plan so we can evaluate where it's going, what you're planting in this area. And you might even have an opportunity to contact a wetland scientist that you know, or someone else that could figure out where the edge of the wetland is. So everything would be in its correct spot.
Well, okay, then we're into notice of intent then.
No, you're not. You can do that within this here.
In this?
Yeah. So if you can come up, so you can show us a planting plan within this request for determination.
Okay.
And you can verify the wetland. So again, you checked off A and you're asking us to find out if it's in the subject area. And, you know, we only review, we don't do the wetland line ourselves. So that's how that would happen.
Can I just add, going on what Chuck had said, you're concerned about time. We get that. And so a mistake sometimes applicants make when they're concerned about time is they segment this. And I believe what Chuck is suggesting is you can do it all together. You come up with a planting plan, but you're also, having a reasonable explanation of where you think the wetland ends and maybe consulting as Chuck suggested. I understand you were concerned about a formal process that would take you to the end of the summer. And as I understand what Chuck's saying, you don't have to do that. But, we sometimes have people come back and they've done part of what we requested, when in fact, if they'd just taken a little extra time and done a planting plan in addition to the other thing, it could have been discussed at the next meeting. So those are some things to keep in mind as a practical matter.
Okay. Oh, we can do that. I can have a wetlands person out there. So we're gonna do a planting plan. We're gonna determine the extent of this area that we're talking about that's been planted,
You're going to find out where the
where
wetland
the edges are.
actually is, because that may not be wetland. So find out where the
Fingers crossed.
wetland is. And based on that, you can do a planting plan and it can still continue with an RDA process.
So we would continue this meeting. Is that how this would work?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm hoping it's a high water table. And then as you walk on a high water table, it feels the same way. That's what I'm hoping.
So then can I have a motion to continue this to our next meeting? Can you have it by the next meeting? Okay, can you have the plan and
For the next meeting,
24th?
I'll do the best I can. I'll have to make some calls and get somebody out there. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to be on agenda for the 24th?
Okay. Is that all right with you?
I'd have to check.
And if you
Oh, yeah,
can't
but
make
you
the
don't have to be
24th, we can always push it off another to the
Okay, I mean,
August meeting.
Yeah, I'll have to let you know about the 24th, but we'll keep in touch about that.
Okay, so can I have
So what do I,
have a motion to continue to July
Oh, I'm
24th?
fine with it. I'm
you're okay with the 24th? You
Right,
just don't know if
I
you
mean,
can
that's
be
the
there.
next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, okay. No, we're okay with continuing to the next meeting.
Okay,
And I'll do it,
And if you don't make the deadline for that meeting, it's okay. We just do the next one, but better to aim for the earlier.
it's okay. No, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's all right.
All right.
Let's know whether we got there. What I'm hoping is high water table. We'll see.
does anybody want to present a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing on 167 Belmont to the next meeting on July 24th.
I'll second that. This is Martha Moore.
Okay, can we start the voting? Walter?
Before I vote, may I ask who the gentleman is who has been speaking with the contractor? There's a gentleman in the audience who's not been identified.
For the record.
Hi, Jeff Sa. I'm the owner of 167 Belmont Street.
Thank you. Walt Talbot votes in favor.
Bill McCants votes in favor.
Tony Woodalakis in favor.
Chirag Staliker votes in favor.
Rebecca Toffamo in favor.
Martha Moore in favor?
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your time. That was very productive. And so I'll get back to Chuck and keep him posted as to where we are, if that's all right.
Sounds good.
And do our darndest to get prepared for the next meeting, okay?
Great.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you. Good luck.
is there anybody out there for the next hearing?
Yes, Andrew Cole is here for Swamp. Andrew, who else is on your team? I could just let them into the meeting now.
Hi, Chuck. Allison Milliman from BSC Group is on tonight as well.
Thank you for the clapping hands, Allison. I see you.
Okay.
You turn, yeah.
So I will read the blurb and Chuck, you can bring up any plans or anything you might have. Open the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Andrew Cole, New England Power Group Companies, NEP, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant is proposing general maintenance activity and improvements along the 339 transmission line. The activity will include the replacement and relocation of one of the caisson supported structures and tree removal within the BVW. All of the work is within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and wetland resource area. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall. Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year. Assessors map 54, lot 1, DEP file number 270-0785. Okay, do you want to tell us briefly about your project?
Absolutely. Good evening, Reading Conservation Commission. My name is Allison Milliman. I'm with BSC Group. I'm the consultant to New England Power. Andrew Cole is here. He's the representing the applicant, New England Power Company. May I please share my screen?
Yes, you have permissions.
Please let me know when this is visible.
It's up.
Okay, great. So this is New England Power Company's 339349 transmission line asset condition refurbishment project. Whoops. Okay, so here's the project location. You can see that this is on the USGS map here, the existing transmission line right of way that is associated with these two transmission lines. The portion of work that is within the town of Reading is this this red line here. It's a small portion where it meets the Haverhill, I think, and the North Reading line. The proposed project activities are a replacement of the existing transmission line structures. Right now, what's currently in the field and in the right of way are these more narrow based H-frame structures. For reliability and future maintenance purposes, New England Power is proposing to install these different structures that are just a little bit wider than what's currently in the field. And the purpose of these is that they can be maintained and during an emergency, and they can be worked on live if necessary. So this is the environmental resources map that was shared in your notice of intent application package. You'll see here that this is the town line. And this transmission line just skirts right here through the corner of the town of Reading. Winfield is to the east here. North Reading is to the west. Apologize, I misspoke. So these squares here around the structures, those are the temporary construction mats that are being proposed to be installed. Temporary construction mats are a best management practice. The company uses them often for maintenance activities such as this. The construction mats, I'll show a picture to the commission up on the next slide, but they're basically large timber mats that are placed on top of the wetland soil and vegetation. Their purpose is to protect the wetland soil and the root mass of the wetlands, to displace the weight of the construction equipment that's proposed to go in and replace these transmission structures. And after the work is complete, that temporary matting is removed and the area is allowed to revegetate naturally. Where you see here that there's two structures on the plan that are with the X's, these are structures that will be removed from the wetland. And this is a replacement structure that is being proposed. The term was used caisson foundation. Basically what that means, it's a concrete base at the bottom of each of the pole that's necessary to support those structures. Selective tree removal will be required, and this is basically to maintain the necessary clearances from those transmission lines. The tree removal will occur within bordering vegetated wetland. The trees will be cut at the base. The stumps will be left intact, so there will be no grubbing or soil disturbance associated with these activities. The understory will be left intact as well. And again, it will be selective tree removals, only those non-compatible trees that will grow and create a clearance violation for the overhead transmission lines. Here's a picture of our temporary construction matting examples that are used for these sorts of projects when work is happening in wetlands. So this just shows you that, they're wooden timber mats and they're placed on top of the soil and they're removed after the work is complete. So there are two impacts proposed for this project. The first one is that there are trees to be removed as required for the appropriate clearances to the overhead transmission lines. Right now, they did a transect survey, and they anticipate approximately 650 trees will need to be removed in the wetland in the town of Reading. But the plan is to conserve as much as possible when the forestry crew goes out there. And then we will count the stumps that are left, and then we will calculate and pay based on the town of Reading's tree fund. So that's $250 per tree as a tree replacement policy is being proposed. Secondly, the two structures that are being removed and they're getting replaced with one structure, but that structure does have is required to have those concrete foundations I talked about. So that results in approximately 57 square feet of permanent fill. Based on the town's bylaw and requirements, we understand there's a 2-to-1 replication. Due to the fact that, as you saw on the map, this entire stretch of right-of-way is within wetlands in the town of Reading, there's no suitable location for us to provide a 2-to-1 replication within easement. So the company is proposing basically an in lieu fee payment to the town of Reading. Then they base this number on the estimated cost from other replication projects that they've conducted at $100 per square foot of replication. And that estimates about 11,400 square feet, $11,400 that is being proposed as an in lieu fee payment to the town of Reading to compensate for 57 square feet of loss BVW. Okay, so with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I would like to open it up for any questions or comments from the commission at this time.
So before we turn it over, you did mention the tree fund. It's the Conservation Commission fund is the fund that you would be funding for the trees.
In accordance with the tree replacement policy, correct, Chuck? Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm just making sure you have the right fund. We have a tree fund and we have a conservation fund, and it would be the conservation fund that we're requesting, which is not what it says on the tree policy.
Okay. but that price is still the acceptable amount, Chuck?
So we asked for $250 a tree. At 650 trees, you're in the neighborhood of $150,000. Is that, do I have that wrong? I thought I got it right.
Yeah, based on the transects, it came out to an estimated 650. I think at the conclusion, doing a walkthrough and a count, you know, it may be less, but yeah, on the top end, it would be $162,500.
All right, we want to make sure that is, and you don't grind the stumps during this project. What you're cutting, you're leaving out there. Is that true? How are you taking the stumps out that may be in the area where you're putting in the foundation?
Well, that
That
area
falls-
is
Go ahead,
currently cleared. I'm sorry, Andrew.
That's
That
clear.
area is currently cleared, yes, sir.
The only reason I asked that question and jumped in front of the commissioners is because I wanted to make sure that if we had to go out and make a count, stumps would be available. All right, so it seems like that is what we asked for with our tree policy, so there's no need to discuss that. And we've, in the past, had me go out with any commission members that are available to make that count, so that doesn't need to be discussed.
That's if you go with the 250 minimum. In the same clause, it says the top end is totally at the commission's discretion. So I'm not saying it should be different. I'm just saying, given the quality of that area and the fact that it'll be lost forever by taking these trees, I just want to leave it on the table that we may not go with the minimum of 250. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, and then the town, you said, was it an average of the towns that you did for work within the resource area? And what was that number you came up with? Because I think we're $11.
Yes.
So it's
Square-
$100 a square foot, which brings us to $11,400 for the 2-to-1. So it's $11,400 for 57 square feet of fill.
So how did you arrive at the 57 square feet?
That's the size of the permanent caisson foundations, the base of the new structures.
But what about the fact that you'll be taking from one side of the easement going into Cedar Swamp? That's going to account for that square footage?
Well, the existing transmission line is within Cedar Swamp, so they're not moving the structures into the swamp. They're replacing the existing structures.
Excuse me, my understanding was that you were moving the edge of the easement 20 feet because you needed to get it away from one side because of the tall trees. So you're moving it further. I don't know which direction that is. I don't say left and right, but you're moving it 20 feet. So I think the square footage is whatever the length is, about 500 feet times about 20 feet in depth, which is 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, so we didn't count that as a loss of wetlands, but you're correct. The 20 feet for the new structures to account for the clearance, that does have an area where those trees are. What we were proposing was the tree count for compensation as mitigation.
But I think what we're looking at is, on the one hand, the free replacement costs, and on the other hand, the filing fee, which is 11 feet per square feet. And that includes what's going to be lost because of moving the easement over. So it's 10,000 square feet, assuming that's what it ends up being, 10,000 square feet times $11 a square foot.
But there's no loss, sir, if I may. We're not, the wetland, we're not losing a wetland.
Well, you're losing the kind of wetland is right now with these trees on hummocks and scattered throughout it. You're going to be quote unquote clear cutting that. So yes, you are losing it. You're altering it. I don't know how else you can see that. In fact, one of the other concerns that we have is what's going to be done to prevent invasives from filling that space after those trees are cleared.
So I think some of the commissioners were on a site walk with Shona Patasteas. I couldn't attend, but from that field walk, I think it was observed that there are existing invasives in the understory regardless. So there's the tree removal that we are identifying here, the mitigation or trying to mitigate the spread of invasives. They're already present throughout. So I guess I don't.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not saying there aren't invasives. My concern is if all those trees are removed, there'll be a blooming of more invasives and, it'll just take over that area. And so the first two concerns, especially financially, are the filing fees and the tree replacement cost. Then an additional consideration is what could be done to help minimize invasive spread in that area that would be newly cut.
I'm happy to speak on, construction related invasive management. So New England Power does have environmental guidance that does require that the temporary construction matting and the equipment is cleaned prior to moving from one location to another in a wetland. So that prevents the transfer of invasive weed seeds from other locations. But the fact that there are currently existing invasives in that understory, that the cleaning of equipment, the cleaning of mats, they're already extant. So they do the best they can to make sure they don't reintroduce new ones.
Okay, so I'm actually not suggesting that you're going to bring them in, although I'm glad to hear the steps you're taking to prevent it. I'm more worried about what moves in naturally. So let me cut to the chase. Would you be willing to consider doing some plantings in there to fill in that now empty space? So there's wetland plants growing there, which would be in place to help combat invasive spread.
I guess it's going to be totally dependent on the species. And so just to be clear, we're talking about a fee for the permanent loss. We're talking about a fee for the tree removals. We're talking about an alteration fee, and we're talking about, to account for invasive spread, a planting, all these things on the table for this activity. Is that correct?
I think you may have added an extra one that I wasn't thinking of. Let me try again. So there's the filing fee, which is $11 a square foot times whatever that area ends up being. Then there's the cost for the tree replacement, which is minimum $250 per tree times whatever number of trees. And then I'm asking if you would be open to doing some plantings to help stabilize that area once all those trees are cut. Hang on a second, check out something.
So the reason why I suggested funding the conservation fund is because the Conservation Commission can manage that themselves, and this amount of money would be set aside for tree work, and you could plant in that area if you wanted to, or some other area with this money. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that. So you're funding an account that the Conservation Commission could determine whether to use that money. And the other thing that was unclear is this area that, because I didn't get out to the site visit, and I apologize for that. This area that Brian's talking about, are you grubbing this or are you just matting it?
Just matting.
Yeah, just matting in the
no
existing.
grubbing.
Yep. There's no grubbing, correct.
That's where the caissons are going to be. That's not where they're extending the width of the easement.
Correct.
Yeah, and so the area that's extending, we're not taking equipment in there in the sense of going in there grubbing, to answer Chuck's question. So the matting that is used for the caisson and access is what the equipment will use to reach over and do the removals, or it'll be, crews will be walking in, dropping trees, and they picking the trees. So the stumps will remain. There's no grubbing. The hummocks that are present, the existing vegetation, native and invasive, it's not going to be removed.
It's not, they're not grubbing in those areas. So what's there is likely to come back. it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm really still not considering that. Okay, what you mean as far as the filing fees?
No, well, you've brought up a new area where they're saying we're just going to move mats into that area. If there's trees in that area where they're moving over, what was it, to make the turn or something? I don't know what you're, but
It's because the woman who took Brian and me out on our site visit said that the trees on the Cedar Swamp Conservation Area side are growing too close to the power lines.
Right.
And they want to actually move the power lines closer to the other side. And therefore take out all this string of trees going along. And Brian and I are having a hard time imagining that this very shady, very dark cedar forest will continue to exist if they've removed all these trees. And we're picturing that it's not going to act like the same wetland it was.
At
And,
least in the area where the trees are removed.
yeah,
well, that's,
so, and that's a 20-foot strip all the way down.
that's where the 650 trees are?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so they've accounted for those trees in that 650 number. And they're not grubbing in that number. I think they're only disturbing the soil where the caissons are going. That's, if I'm correct so far, okay. And so I don't know if there's another spot, because you're talking about invasives and you would grub, and then there would be a seed bank, but there would be other things happening in the air and whatnot, and birds and all that. And then that's when the invasives would grow in.
Invasive is the least of my concern,
Okay.
especially in light of we can use this money to do something. The two biggest areas of concern are the two financial ones, filing fees and tree replacement fees.
Yeah, so the filing fee, I think they're just accepting the tree replacement policy as it's stated, and for work, freshwater wetlands, bogs, marshes, creeks, blah, blah, blah. It's $11 per square foot times their disturbance.
The question is, what is that square footage? Their contention is 57 square feet because of the caisson base. I'm talking about the
Right.
500 feet times 20 feet that they're digging into the cedar.
They're only cutting so what I'm hearing, and you guys can speak up, I don't, it's not supposed to be between me and you.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is that in that strip, they're only cutting the trees, which is alteration. But by putting mats on top of the shrubs and that button bush and whatever else is out there, it comes up the next year. So it's temporary impact. So there's no charge for temporary impact.
Trees are not temporary
But
impact.
the trees are being accounted for in the tree policy. Any tree they cut down over 6 inches. Now that you could say, there's a bunch of trees out there that are 6 inches or less DBH that are not being accounted for. And that impact isn't measured by any monetary,
So if I may, under DJ in our regulations, it says for work in freshwater, wetland, wet meadow, et cetera, $11 per square foot of resource area temporarily or permanently altered. That's permanently altered. Those trees are gone. So even if the lower levels come back, the trees aren't coming back. That's a permanent alteration.
yeah. I guess so.
and
But one more thing, I don't wanna, the fees weren't adjusted after we put the tree policy in. So this is one thing where we had this tree policy that came after this fee policy, or this fee regulations. The fee regulations were written just in case there were trees out there. And now we have a tree policy. So I think it would be considered like double dipping for the trees over 6 inch DBH, which they seem to account for. The ones under it, there might be some sort of adjustment for the ones that are smaller. So they weren't written at the same time, Brian. So I'm thinking that this understood trees could be coming down. So if I could I'll just say it one more time. I think you're talking about trees smaller than 6 inches DBH that will be removed. Allison, when you take the trees down, what will happen to that understory? Will it just continue to grow? I know that you'll go through there, with your maintenance plan and cut down any woody vegetation, but you're always going to have that shrub layer in place.
Correct, sir. Yes, well, it will resemble what is out there now, which is a scrub shrub and emergent habitat wetland type. I'd like to kind of echo Chuck's comment on double dipping. I agree, and I would also like just the commission to consider the fact that there are no practical alternatives, and the New England Power Company can't move this entire transmission line elsewhere outside of a wetland. Their hands are tied. They're required to upgrade their lines per, federal regulations. The state of Massachusetts is working for, electrified system. I mean, everybody wants more electricity. We're transmitting, cleaner energy with electricity. So I just like to everyone to please keep that in mind. And lastly, the fact that these fees, they ultimately do roll down to the ratepayers. So please keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
Well, Brian, you could think about the smaller trees that are out there and maybe combining them. So every 3, every 5 equal 1, and that could be added to the 650 total. You could think about it that way. You could listen to the argument about maybe maybe it's not a forested wetland anymore. Maybe it's like a shrub scrub wetland. And if I was going to ask if that's going to be viable, but these places, there's always like brush growing, and we've walked out there on the last project and they buried that stuff. And when you look at it today, it looks fine.
Yeah, I'm really not worried about the matting at all because of the other end of the same line where they had that long distance of matting. That's all grown back. So
but I think the point is, what is the permanent loss under 6-inch DBH, and maybe others need to weigh in on that.
Okay, so I think it's time for you and I to stop talking and see if there's anybody else in the commission who actually wants to weigh in and save Chuck and I from ourselves.
I just want to make sure Chuck understands that the matting that they're putting down will not be in the 20-foot area that they're cutting trees from. The matting is going in the shrub scrub layer already, and they're going to reach over with crane arms kind of thing to pluck the trees out without damaging all the understory. Yeah. And so I think they also told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, because neither of you was on the site visit, but she said they could cedar trees that are a little too tall, but not that too tall. You could top them rather than cutting them completely down to the ground. And some of the larger trees would be cut to the ground, but you would be trying your best to protect as many trees as you can as you're doing the cutting. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that would be a way to look at it. Yep. So if you're on that area where the trees are being removed and you have cedar trees that are on the outer edge, those would be retained because they're low growth and they're not, in conflict with the overhead clearance. And then ones that maybe are underneath that would be in conflict, they could top potentially, but it's going to be based on where they're located in relation to the wires and those clearances. So I think at the end, when we do the count, there'd be a further reduction. It's our aim to reduce this overall.
Thanks. I see Walter's got his hand up.
Walter.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Allison.
Hello.
In the beginning, the presentation said that this whole project was being done for ease of maintenance. Did I understand that correctly? It sounds like you're replacing existing pylons with other pylons.
Correct. So the current structures that are out there are narrow, what they call narrow base structures. And they're not meeting the requirements for the reliability that the company is aiming for. So the wider base structures meet their standards, and also if there is an emergency need, like a storm event, say, and they need to get out there, they're actually able to work on these different structure types live. But regardless, I'd like to point out that the existing structures now don't meet, that the trees that are there doesn't meet the existing structure clearance requirements. So,
Yeah,
regardless.
the only thing I'll add, Walter, is just, with the new configuration, thinking about when you're up in the air and your proximity to the, adjacent conductor, that's where the current configuration, we have to take the line out and it's unsafe. And this new configuration allows the equipment and the manpower to be up there, and there's more clearance as they're working. So that's why, we're driving towards these structures with a wider base.
So that there's no, these pylons aren't going to be able to handle more cable, more KVA or anything. They're not going to change how much electricity is being transmitted.
The current overhead wires are 345 kV, and it's going to stay at 345 kV.
So there is no monetary advantage for you to do this. This is purely expense. It's not like you're saving money on maintenance.
We would be saving money on maintenance in the sense of their wood structures now. If we replaced them with wood structures, there's a shorter lifespan for wood structures. And then also that spacing when you're coming in, like Allison mentioned, if there's a storm event, you don't have to take an outage availability, safety, more manpower, more equipment types. So there are a lot of maintenance benefits to this.
Somehow our conversation got turned into dollar bills, so excuse me.
No.
Is there any dollar amount that you're looking at that you're saving over X number of years?
I don't have a number like that on hand. No, sorry.
So Walter, if I could jump in, the reason it got changed to a dollar conversation is because there needed to be an agreement that we arrived to on what the filing fees and such would be upfront before there was a final decision to go forward, I believe. But
I understand that. I understand that. I was just looking for how big the bank was.
Okay. One way to look at it.
Bank, so, yeah, so Walter, we have our fees, and Allison did mention that other towns, it's less, but our fees are our fees, and it was maybe $500,000 based on our fees, this project. And so that's what they were required to bring to the table. The commission has reduced fees in the past, so that's pretty standard. But if it on a percentage basis, we're right around where the commission usually does that reduction too. So yeah, I misinterpreted your question. I thought you were wondering why we started out even talking about fees rather than the project itself. But I think it's important in my mind to have a complete application, and that would require an agreement on the fees and an understanding that that check will come in to meet that requirement. So that's why we're doing this rather than later on when the discussion's over.
Walter, do you have anything else? Bill, do you have anything?
I do have some other.
Okay, go ahead, Martha.
Okay. One question I had was, if you're reducing the number of towers from 4 to 3, I believe we were told, is there any opportunity for mitigation in the place where you're taking the towers out, or are you just leaving the footings in place so there's no chance for replanting there?
Allison, I can take it, or if you want to.
Go ahead, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, so the plan would be to cut them flush to grade. by removing them, you're trying to yank up on, something that's undergrade, and it can undermine and, create more disturbance. So cutting it flush to grade, and anything that's like immediate adjacent. So if there happened to be like a stone cone, that's maybe not the terminology that you're familiar with, but like stone right at the base, that would be removed. So in terms of mitigating, to your point, it would, the vegetation that's present, it would basically turn into wetland. But we're not excavating further down into the ground and bring in wetland soils.
So that can't help with the mitigation.
Yeah, and we didn't take that number for the removals into account. We just accepted that's a practice of ours, and that's benefit. So it's not like we included that in an offset, right? So the caissons that Allison identified for the square feet is what they are. We didn't reduce that total number thinking about the offset of the removals. We just accepted that's a practice we perform, and it's a benefit to the wetlands.
But when you remove them, then you're just leaving a big hunk of concrete in the ground. It's not really turning into wetland because it's got a foundation sitting there.
So they're not on foundations currently. They're direct in bed wood poles.
Ah, okay. So the wood poles, you're just cutting off at ground level, but there's
Yes.
not a big impact because they're just telephone pole size posts.
Correct. Yes.
Got it. All right.
Sorry, I wasn't clear.
A couple of things we talked about out on the site visit was when you're putting the matting down, I'd like to see some gaps underneath I think it's called the stringers, gaps between the stringers so that amphibians and other wildlife can travel under the matting and not be blocked passing through. Is that something that's feasible to do?
Yeah, that's absolutely feasible. Generally, there are gaps. So those stringers, they don't put them, butt to butt. They stack, they place them, and there are gaps. And then, I think if the picture that Allison showed, it didn't exactly represent it, but underneath there's the stringers that are laid, and then it's top decked. So there are gaps present. So that's a given.
So the wildlife can pass under. Good.
Yes.
And also concerned about any possible oil spills caused by the vehicles that are driving up and down on the matting. Do you have oil containment kits? And can you do your fueling outside of the wetland and stuff like that?
Yep. Yeah, the fueling would be done outside of the wetland. The only thing that may need fueling in the wetland is like a stationary drill, because to basically move that and take it out of the wetland would be pretty extensive. So that would be the only thing that's done fueling. While fueling's done, they have a spill kit. Every piece of equipment has a spill kit on hand, and then they're basically we have our environmental monitors that are present and kind of doing checks throughout as well. So that's kind of the extent of spill prevention that we practice.
Okay. And then she also talked to us about the correct season for laying down and taking up the mat so that you would be causing the least disturbance to the vegetation when you're out there. And I'd like to see that be a condition for this project, is to make sure that you're using the correct season of the year for putting these down and taking them up, so you're not impacting the wildlife as much as possible and the vegetation. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can say that I know the tree removals are being proposed in the wintertime. And that is very beneficial to, wildlife, any wildlife that could be potentially using the trees for roosting or nesting. So that is definitely happening outside of any kind of active wildlife season.
Okay, good. But also she was talking about the timing for actually laying down the mats and picking the mats back up. She was saying it was going to be more than a year project, and you could time the mat so that you're maybe not crushing actively growing vegetation, but something like that.
Yeah, I think not being present, I think Shona was kind of identifying maybe the potential for amphibians in our operation maintenance plan with natural heritage for the particular species is the installation sort of outside their their emergent period early spring. So it would be mat applied either over winter or following sort of those emergent activities by amphibians. But as far as placing mats in any other time of year, like throughout the summer, that's not something that we can tailor for the project because of outage availability and number of mats, but we would be avoiding the placement of mats in that emergent period.
Fine, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Similar to the town forest when they, so it's probably be the same blackout zone.
Yeah. Okay, so, those were all the questions I had.
I have one additional one. Have you considered leaving snags rather than taking the trees out altogether?
We did discuss with forestry the application of snags. So as we do that, so with forestry going to do that sideline work, the trees that are on the edge, we would try to maintain. Trees that are either just inside, we would top and do snags. So it would be a wildlife benefit. That was already a consideration we were going to implement.
So roughly how many would become snags?
I can't say right now. I think there's going to be a fair number that have the potential for snags, but it has to be with a forestry present and doing clearance. So they check the clearance and just make sure that when they top it and kind of where it is positioned, that it's a snag that can be created.
So would you have that number by the time you got to a plan that we were going to vote on? Otherwise, you're asking us just to vote on promise.
Well, yeah, so I think we could create a number of snags and do a count at the end, and we could take the number of snags to reduce the fee by for the tree removal fee.
Okay.
Right, so so for every snag, it'd be one less tree removed kind of concept.
I'm not sure leaving a snag counts as not removing a tree.
Just trying to offer a mitigation and a less costly, impact to, the Commonwealth and the ratepayers. But we could, at a minimum, create snags and provide the count that was created at the end.
Yeah, I would just like to see snags for the habitat reasons. Okay. So I don't have any more questions. So at this point, what's the next step? We haven't finalized the fee yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a new twist with the snags. So.
And I'd like to have some time to consider your idea of combining some of these smaller ones to become a tree, if you will. I'm still concerned about clearing that space. I mean, I guess I'd like to see it continue so we can think about these things. Is that reasonable?
If you're asking me, I'm just gonna say, need a motion and see if it's seconded.
Okay.
We can vote. You make a motion?
Well, before we make a motion, if we did make a motion to continue, is the applicant okay with that?
So I guess my only question is, it's so that you can consider the fees we've discussed individually and then we can meet again and discuss them further?
No, it's so I could think about some of the ideas that were brought up. We can't deliberate outside of this meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I guess, where I was not following exactly where we were going with coming to a
Gotcha.
mitigation.
You can review the area in question to see how many smaller than 6-inch DBH trees are there.
I don't think so, if only because they'd be leaving those stumps theoretically too, right? But there still would be something there to count.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We understand that trees that are more than 6-inch DBH are going to be tall. We're now talking about trees that are maybe 2 or 3-inch. Would those be trees you'd need to cut at all, or would those be trees you could leave because they're not high enough to endanger the power lines?
I think depending on the species. So some species are very slow growing. And then forestry has their vegetation management cycle. So they just need to take a look at those that are the smaller DBH. You know, there are trees that grow really tall but are small DBH because they're trying to, you know, get up for sunlight. And so my only concern with saying yes to your question is it's a very tall tree. The forestry, you know, has an issue with that height. But I think there's going to be trees that are the DBH that are smaller that don't need to be cut, and certain species, obviously.
All right, so they would make a judgment tree by tree of what needs to be cut to keep the power line safe and what can be left because it's maybe a small cedar that doesn't really threaten the power lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a practice that I've done before on a right-of-way similar scenario is we work through the area with forestry, the swath, and we basically identify the trees on the edge that can be maintained, and those are, you know, marked. Then we work through the trees that we're going to create snags, those are marked, and they have clear direction as they work their way through. So that's what we would implement to be successful in maintaining, creating snags, and identifying what could be retained or removed.
Thanks.
Okay, so going back to my question, if we voted to continue, would the applicant be all right with that?
I guess the reason I'm hesitating here is I'm a little unsure of what we're continuing to get to an answer of. It sounds like we have tree removal policy, 650 trees at the tree rate, you know, $250. The proposed $11,400. And are we saying there's more mitigation fees to consider here?
So in my mind, I don't know if you're thinking about this, Brian, but the tree policy says you can pay or you can leave a snag. But they're paying the tree policy, they're reducing the permanent alteration policy, which seems to be your issue, because you're saying that whole swap is going to be permanently altered, but they're not really. Is there a minimum with the trees, whether they need snags or not, that as a combination of those two that you could justify with? And again, the reason why it's important is because that money can be used directly for trees either elsewhere in town or in this site.
Yeah, I'm just still not decided on what we should be asking for, given the language in the regulations about 250 minimum. So I'm comparing that against altering, damaging that big a swath of a kind of wetlands that we don't have much of. That's a relatively unusual kind of wetlands. I mean, I've never been in one like that before. And so I just don't want to give that up, I guess, is the bottom line.
Do you need to know like what the viability of that area would be post tree removal?
It would help, but again, if you think of all the criteria that they give for trees in wetlands and the resources, and it's cover for wildlife, it's temperature control of the water, you know, all these different things, and all of those would be affected by removing that many trees. So all of a sudden you have warmer water, all of a sudden you have wildlife that has to find a new place to hunt, a new place to live. So it is, in my mind, that's a big consideration.
Just one thing to add to, I guess, your comments there. We did go through this project with Natural Heritage, you know, related to the tree removals, related to following the operation maintenance plan, placing the mats outside of that emergent period for the amphibians, as Allison spoke to, roost trees for the bat species that are being listed. So in that consideration, Natural Heritage weighed in, and they felt that, you know, what we were doing in our practices were mitigating.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you. So that's what I'm stuck on. And I do want to think about this double dipping concept. I want to read the regulations some more and see if I agree with that. Just don't want to rush in to give away that much of a fairly unique swamp.
Elliot, you want to, you would like permission to continue to the next meeting, which is the 24th of July, and see what they say.
Right. So can I have a motion from someone?
No.
Oh,
Gotta get permission.
oh, forgot. I asked her twice. I didn't get an answer. So would you agree if we voted to continue till July 24th?
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you. Given that, can I have a motion to continue to July 24th?
I'll move that we continue this hearing to July 24th.
One second.
I move to move this hearing to July.
You second it.
I second that.
Okay, can we have a vote? Walter, can you start?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Bill McCants, not in favor?
In favor.
Tony's gone, right?
Tony's gone, yeah.
In favor.
In favor.
Your name and.
Oh, sorry, Craig Catalfamo, in favor.
Chirag Sthalekar, in favor.
Okay.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. So that's,
5 in favor, 1 against,
And
and
one.
Tony's absent because he signed off at 8 p.m.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And
Thank
then
you. Mike.
And just for the record, Chirag was the one who seconded that motion. It's often hard for the person listening to the Zoom call to recognize voices, so we always try to say our name when we move and second, because it has to get in the minutes.
Okay. Okay. Next on it, that's it for our hearings. Next on this is old new business, violation notices. Asking myself if we have any updates to make, and I don't believe we do.
No, there's no updates. 1110 Main Street, no activity that I saw driving past last couple of, well, actually just this week.
So what about the other one that one we looked at the other day through the other end of Annette? Did you send a letter to them?
I did not.
Okay, so that should be added to this list.
Probably why it's not. No, I didn't send a letter.
Okay, I think that's 27 Applegate, at least on that side.
I did see a change at 1110 Main Street. They've taken down the wall of the swimming pool, so it's just the sandy circle now.
Mhm.
Good.
They clearly are not continuing to build a pool in that location.
Good to know. Okay, then certificate of compliance for 52 Loyannis Drive.
Now we have Catherine White here to discuss that. And so, hi Catherine, thanks for coming tonight. I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and then bring the commission up to date with your project.
For the record, I'm Caitlin White from Hancock Associates. And I can give you guys some updates about what's going on at 52 Loyannis. So they have taken out all the boxwoods and they have replaced the ones around the putting green with the little blue stem that was on the approved planting plan. They ran into a snag when trying to source the eastern yews, and they aren't able to find them. So we were hoping that we could propose to do native inkberries, Ilex glabra, instead of the American yew bushes that were approved.
That works for me.
It does. It works for me too.
Okay, so that sounds okay.
Does it need a vote for the whole group?
You can vote, but there might be some more changes.
Yeah, I mean, wait to get through whatever you're talking through. Okay, then any other changes or any updates you want to tell us?
Those are the only updates so far.
Okay. And when do you think the commission could go out and see the inkberries planted? And then with that, come back to a meeting and take a vote on this certificate of compliance?
Aren't there trees in the back we were talking about too? The ones that were all in a straight line?
You're talking about moving them.
They had a proposed plan. If you want me to put that up, or do you want to put that up?
Yeah, if you can put it up, that's fine.
Yes. Let's do it again. Should do it.
And while Chuck's working on that, I also had a note that there were supposed to be 10 mixed perennials that they didn't seem to have survived. Have you got a plan for those?
What you're referring to is on this plan.
Okay.
There's
good.
a little call out for it. So for this area in the back, where we have the restoration area, the trees were planted too close. The homeowner is open to spreading out the trees and expanding that area, just so then the trees have more room. That's the area that's highlighted in red that they would be expanding. So then it's 8 red maples and 8 swamp white oaks. We could potentially move, I think I said, Chuck, could you scroll down, please? Thank you. So we could move 3 of the red maples and 3 of the swamp white oaks, so then the trees have more space into that red highlighted area, if you guys are open to that as an option. And then the other call outs that I have on this plan are native perennials, which we could give you guys a short list of species that they would be picking from. These are just areas where they had perennials that didn't make it. And so we thought it'd be a nice option to offer native perennials versus the non-natives that were in place.
Okay. And when you're moving the 3 oaks and the 3 maples, can we have you put them in, I don't know, more like a grid pattern rather than in a straight line, so that they're scattered around as far apart from each other as possible?
That would be the intent, yes, to have them more naturally scattered.
Good.
Questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Bill, do you have any questions? Can't see if your hand raised or not.
Bill says no.
Okay.
It's just, when will this happen and when can we go out and check it? That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what.
Right, so Chuck had asked that and we didn't get an answer yet on when we could go look.
I think we would not have enough time for the next meeting. I think potentially the meeting after that would be more appropriate for the homeowners to get this work done and have everything stable for you guys to come out and see the finished product.
What is it?
14th.
Okay, so that would be August 14th. All right,
And you guys do site walks on Mondays, correct?
typically, yeah. We'd want to be out there 3 days before, so it's 2 days before the 12th.
Yeah, so do you want to set the time up now for August 14th? Would you like to be at 9 or possibly later? You're either 9 o'clock if it's the first one, or we could put you at the end because you're at one end of town.
Yeah.
So you're going to be probably at the end of the site visit. So it'd be 9 o'clock or after 10.
Do you have a preference?
9 o'clock would work best if that's okay.
Sure. We don't have anything else scheduled yet, so you might as well get first dibs.
Okay, so 9 o'clock on August 14th, 52 Loannis Drive. And if something comes up in the meantime, like the plans didn't come in or you had to make some changes, just email me and we can just approve them at the next meeting if that's what's needed.
So is the middle of the summer a good time for moving the trees, or is it better to move the trees later in the season? I think if you're gonna move the trees in the summer, I would wanna make sure they got well watered so they don't die. Do you have thoughts on that, Chuck?
It's true. So is there an irrigation system that you're relying on to keep the trees watered?
There's not an irrigation system. Would the commission be open to the homeowners completing the other portions of the work and then relocating the trees in the fall, and then we revisit it? That
Yeah.
portion of the site then?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
If that's a better time for the trees to survive that move, I'd hate to move them all and then have them all die because it's 90 degrees out.
So I think it'd still be good to come by on the 12th, just to see the plants you have planted, but then we'll come out again when the trees are moved to see how that's going.
Yeah, the 14th, August 14th.
Well, the
2
14th
days
is the
before,
meeting.
12th.
Oh, and the 12th.
Is the visit, right? But we're not asking them to dig up these trees until September, something like that, right?
Right.
Okay.
So they'll,
Okay. I think we're done with that one for tonight then.
Thank you.
hi,
Thank you.
it's Caleb.
Next one is a certificate of compliance for Joy Lane. Is anybody here for that?
Yes, Steve Knight. Steve Knight, co-hosting permissions. So Steve, you can turn your video on if you like, but
I'm
introduce
trying.
yourself for the record. Hey, Steve.
Hi.
So I think Steve is the contractor who built Joy Lane. And so the questions, specifically the ones that Martha had, which I don't have, so I could present, so you'll have to go through each one of them to get them into the record. Steve could answer those. And we have, oh, Tom is here too, I guess, so hold on. Let's see what Tom has to say.
So Steve, what we're going to be talking about is some observations from a site walk we did earlier this week. There are a number of us who went, and Martha has accumulated a list of.
1 second. I just want to find out what Tom's has his hand up for, just in case we missed him on the last hearing.
Understand.
Tom, can you let us know if you're here for this agenda?
Yes, I'm Tom Schomburg of Civil Design Consultants. Was also here for this presentation.
Okay, thank you. So Tom, so now we're ready. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It was a valid point.
Right, so, a bunch of us did a site walk on Monday. And, I sent Chuck an email with my notes from that site visit. And in no particular order, we noticed that between lot 3 and lot 2, right around the property boundary, so right about at the 100-foot line, so just about the edge of our jurisdiction, the ground was really, really wet there. And when Brian walked across it after he stepped, there were like bubbles coming up from the ground, which should not be a wetland area. And so we were concerned whether maybe there's an irrigation system underground there that was leaking, and that's why there's so much water right there. It didn't seem like it was the storm water retention tanks that are buried underground, because according to the plot plan, those are under the driveway in front of the houses, and this was more in the backyard of the houses. Do you know anything about that wet area?
I don't. So this is in the back of between lot 2 and 3, but in the backyard.
Between lot 2 and 3, if you look at lot 2, they have a circular area that they have planted some shrubs and things behind their house.
Yep.
And there's standing water next to that circular area of shrubs. And the ground is also wet right about on the property boundary between lot 3 and lot 2. So
okay.
I
don't know anything about why that would be, but I can definitely check into it.
If I could just interrupt, it's hard to miss. It's like 30 square feet or more. So just walk out there with some water gear on.
Okay.
Or barefoot.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so, you know, that's just barely on the edge of our jurisdiction, but if they're pouring lots of drinking water into the ground, you know, they might want to know that.
Okay.
Okay, and then, on our original plan that was approved, it looked like there were, alternating, here we go. Deciduous and coniferous trees that were supposed to be planted around the back side of the house on lot 3. And what we saw when we went out there was a straight line of about 16 arborvitae along the property boundary at the back, rather than this curve of deciduous and coniferous trees kind of curving around the house. Do you have an explanation of why that was done?
Yeah, originally we did have trouble sourcing, or the landscaper had some trouble sourcing the trees that we were looking for. And Chuck and I had a conversation about this and came to the agreement that we thought the arborvitaes would be sufficient.
Is that true?
That's true. Yeah, I ran it past Ann also, and she didn't have any complaints. I think we were, when this lot was being finished off, which was, I don't know, a year earlier, or a year and a half earlier than lot 4, we were into that supply problems with trees and shrubs.
Okay, and certainly it is 2 to 1, 2 arborvitaes for every 1 tree that was supposed to be planted there. Okay, all right. We're also interested that there's a patio shown on the as-built plan of the house on lot 3. And certainly it is there, and I didn't see that on the plan that was approved originally. What's the story on that patio?
Well, that's something that honestly got overlooked. We purchased the project as an approved 6-unit subdivision. I wasn't involved in the approval process. So like I said, it was something that was overlooked. You know, I know it is within the 100-foot It's outside of the 35. I mean, and it was placed in an area that was intended to be grass or lawn. I'm not sure what to do about it, honestly. Like I said, it was just something that was overlooked and not really sure how to resolve it or how it would have shown up on the plan originally.
Yeah, on the plan originally, all the houses are just rectangles. So they're representative of the house that's being built, and the houses are clearly more interesting shapes. Is that patio pervious or impervious pavement?
They're pavers. I'm not sure exactly what size, but I would think that water does not drain through them.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so the water would wash off and land on the grass beyond the edges.
Correct.
Okay. Chuck, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I did look at the plan. We got the subdivision plan, the definitive subdivision plan, and you're right, they were just rectangles that were approved. But as Steve said, it looks like it's pretty far away. I mean, we don't have a measurement. I know that the retaining wall is at the 35-foot line, and then it has to be at least another 30 feet away. So we might be 70 feet in that area.
If you look at the 100-foot line, the back corner of the patio comes very close to that 100-foot line.
Yeah, so 70, 80 feet away, something like that, 82 feet away. Steve did say that it was on an area that was proposed for existing lawn. You know, obviously patio is less habitat than grass. But I just think that, and this would come up with the homeowners anyways. And how to rectify it is to, minor plan change and then have the commission review it, or you could review it at this point. But if it was a minor plan change, would it be approved? I'm not sure, but it seems to me likely if the homeowner came back for this project, it would have been approved because that's more typical. I'm not very upset about this because we know from past projects that when there's an exit out the back, whether it's the basement or the kitchen, we are always asking, is there a patio going out there or something? And maybe that was overlooked, and maybe we developed that later on. But this is an area where I guess we didn't ask.
Yeah, well, because we didn't know there was an exit because all we had was a rectangle, right? So we weren't seeing where the doors were on this house.
So the process would have been, Steve would come to us and ask for minor plan change. And we would decide if it was minor or not.
How does the square footage of that house plus patio compare to the square footage of the rectangle that we approved in the first place?
I don't have the exact square footage of that house. It's probably pretty similar. The houses are typically just a little 30 feet, a little bit more on the garage, where the garage is, by maybe 61, 62 feet, if I remember correctly. And I could get that information, I just don't have it handy.
Okay. All right. But the runoff from the rest of the house impervious surface, the roof, is all going into that catch basin that's under the driveway.
Correct.
And it's just this little patio that's running off into the lawn. Yeah, okay.
I actually do have the plan. I was able to find the plan. So the house plan is 30 feet by 64.
And I don't know how big the original rectangle was. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I missed that part. I'm sorry.
the question is, how does that compare to the rectangle that was drawn on the plan that we approved?
I'm trying to find that plan now. I believe there might be slightly larger, but I believe that the subsurface, the dry wells were increased to compensate for anything that was increased.
Okay. And just while we're thinking about door steps to step out onto, I think there's a door in the side of the garage that's facing toward the 100-foot line on the side of the house there toward the property boundary that doesn't have any sort of step to step out onto at this
I think that
point.
was lot 4, wasn't it?
Thought
The
that
one
was,
to the right?
that was lot,
That is 3.
Okay.
yeah. So I'm thinking it may be that you're gonna wanna put some sort of a,
Landing.
yeah, a landing to step on. I don't know. I think that
Because
would be.
I wouldn't want to step directly onto the grass, is that what you're saying, or is it because of the height of the step?
A little of both.
Okay,
It looks like if it was my house, I would haul in a couple of cinder blocks and set them down, you know, the wide flat ones, and set them down in front of the door. But I mean, I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying it looks like it's missing its doorstep.
yeah, okay.
Okay, all right, but I didn't even put that in my notes, so sorry, Chuck, I surprised you with that one. Okay, let's keep going on the other side of that house, facing toward the wetland around about the 35-foot zone. There's a lot of bittersweet vines that are climbing the trees near where those conservation posts are with the yellow signs on top.
Okay.
And I think you might have been listening earlier when we talked to the homeowner about that it's okay to cut a chunk out of the bittersweet vine.
Right.
Make 2 cuts and leave a gap in between so that the vines don't kill the trees.
Okay.
So, but as Chuck pointed out, not chemical invasive management, but just cutting with saws or clippers or something.
Okay.
And in that same area, there's a piece of maybe a rusty tailpipe or something like that on the ground that should be cleaned up. It's in that same 35-foot zone near the retaining wall of the house on lot 3.
It's been into a V and it's rusted, so just look for a rusted piece of metal, maybe 3 feet long, give or take.
Okay.
Okay, and then on the driveway to lot 4, we noticed there's still a couple of pieces of white silt fencing along the boundary just beyond the gravel strip. The
Okay.
trench.
Along the left side.
Yeah, it's along the side there. There's a couple of pieces that are still stuck in the ground from that silt fence.
Okay.
Brian noticed that there's a few branches and things and a little bit of litter along that same edge of that wetland that maybe could be cleaned up.
Okay.
Then there is still a piece of mulch sock in the back corner of lot 4, near, I said near 129 Howard Street and the West Croft Road, back in that corner. Just
Sure.
check.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in the back corner of the lot there, behind the dry well cleanouts.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, I see. Yeah, I understand.
So that it kind of goes off into a point in the back corner, and somewhere back there, we saw intact mulch sock that should be cleaned out, picked up. And the only other thing we thought was interesting, we were inspecting the detention area that is partly planted and partly stone, and it has a outlet structure.
Yep.
And when you look down through the grill at the top of the outlet structure, it's got water in it all the way up to the level of the outlet pipe that goes across the street, across the driveway to the wetland. Is
Right,
that
yep.
what it's, the way it's expected to work?
Yes, so basically if the stone area or the planted area filled up to a point of where it would flow into that catch basin, water at that level, if it went up any more, would go underneath the driveway of lot 4 and empty out into the wetlands across on the other side. So that is the intention. So the water will be in that structure until it raises a little bit higher, and then it would go across the street. But it's intended to be at that level.
So it just has standing water in it as the normal situation.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, interesting design. It makes me think of, you know, mosquito larvae living in there, but if that's the way it was intended, that was my last question.
I have one more thing to add, Steve. The house the furthest back on the right, if you
Yes.
remember when we were there last time, we talked about stabilizing that slope.
Yep.
Okay, so if you go further back along that slope towards the right, there's areas back there where it's bare right at the cusp where it goes from flat to the slope. So I didn't see any signs of erosion, but I'm not sure how long it's been there. You may want to take a look at that and see if you can do something to fill in the gaps that are right on that edge.
Okay, yes, I will take a look at that.
Thank you.
So I was able to find the record plans. Looks like the proposed building on lot 3 was proposed at a 30 by 60. So it's about 100 square feet more in the as-built. But again, it would have been accounted for in the driveway.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not from me, but there were other people on the site visit. Is there anybody else who had any comments?
Walter?
Walter, is your hand raised? I can't see you.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I just had a question on that overflow box. Going in, it looked like there was a gate valve or something to it. There was a spindle sticking out with a handle.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a gate valve?
There is some sort of valve there. Obviously, the road contractor installed that. I don't know exactly what the purpose is. I mean, I can definitely find out, but I wasn't involved in that part of the construction of the road and the detention areas, but I can definitely find that out.
I just was curious what the function that would be. Okay.
So the valve is in the pond so that if for whatever reason any emergency maintenance might need to be done when the pond has water in it, you open up the valve to drain the basin, be able to do the work, and then close it again.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so then the question is whether we want to approve this as is or whether we want to ask for a submittal of a minor plan change. Personally, I'd be fine accepting this the way it is, as long as these little issues are taken care of. But the commission will decide that. So I'm going to ask for a motion to accept this. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, before we go there, the letter from Civil Design, that's about this Joy Lane property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a question for Chuck as Conservation Administrator. I just don't have the institutional knowledge you have. As you know, there's two items in the letter. One is about as-built increase of 3,400 square feet or 10%, variation in house sizes, which I think we sort of covered. But the one I really need to hear from you, Chuck, on if you've heard of such a thing before and if it has any impact. Special condition 26 requires foundation elevations to be recorded, and then it describes there's some variations from that. And then the letter says, the deviations noted above are minor in nature. Is our belief the development is in substantial compliance. I just have no basis to know whether those foundation variations are minor in nature. And so everything's in substantial compliance, and I was looking for your professional opinion on that. Thanks.
Yeah, we asked that the foundation plan is recorded, and we wanted to compare that to the approved plan and save the developer some time and money if it was in the wrong spot or at the wrong elevation. That got away from us on this one here. The developer did not record the as-built plan, and it was never passed by the conservation office. But I do believe that these the changes that are noted, lot 1 is a 0.9 lower than approved. Lot 2 is 0.8 feet, inches lower than approved. I don't think that those type of changes are what the commission is really concerned about. Would be moving closer into the 35-foot, closer, something in that nature that we'd be looking for.
Right. So in other words, we're not looking at something, these kinds of variations that would have an impact on the area we're charged with protecting to any substantial degree. That's sort of what I hear you saying?
That's right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. So can I have a motion to approve this? Yes.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure that it's issued by me after I go to the site and make sure these items, which are that piece of metal, the silt fence, mulch sock, and the mulch sock on lot 4, I think are all cleaned up.
So the motion would be, not that I'm making it, would be to issue the certificate once Chuck has been told that the changes have been made, the cleanups have been done, and then he could
he is
issue.
verified.
Right.
Yeah, and just the one thing that is on my list that I think you didn't mention was, in addition to that piece of metal pipe, rusty metal pipe, there were sticks and litter thrown into the wetland along the drip trench side of the driveway.
You call that?
Soda bottles and things like that.
Oh, all right.
Great.
Trash.
Yeah.
Yard waste and trash.
Yard waste and trash. Sticks and litter is what I wrote, but yeah, yard waste and trash is what we're talking about there. Yeah. And if we give the certificate of compliance as is, does that just encompass that extra patio that was put in, or do we need to do something special for that?
No, I think that you would accept, someone would make a motion to approve the request for a certificate of compliance with the notations made by civil design, noting the deviations from the order of conditions. And I think it's a 17 by 15, 255 square foot patio. That's what I saw. Something like that, but maybe we shouldn't mention the square footage unless it's larger. But accepting the additional patio on lot 3.
Sure.
Would you try and make that motion?
You could say so moved.
So moved.
We'll get a second.
Second?
Yeah.
I, Xerox, second.
Okay, can we vote? Walter?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Xerox Telecom in favor.
Rick Talfmo in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rambo in favor.
That was
6-0.
6-0.
Great. All right, thanks, Steve. Can you just reach out when you've done that cleanup, and we'll just do a site visit. If you need the list, reach out and let me know to send it to you You probably wrote it down.
Yep, I did write it down. All good. Thank you. I deleted it.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. We're gonna.
Good night.
All right. Okay. Chuck, since you're the only one there, do you want to give us an update on the DPW meeting?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was, so at a DPW meeting, I had come back from vacation, so I was only in town for a few days. I really had nothing to talk about that was around town. But we did talk about, Jane Wellman, showed up and was part of the meeting. She's the new assistant town manager. And, it was decided that all requests from conservation, trails, town forest will now be put through by individual members as if you are a resident through See-Click-Fix. Now, after Jane left and everyone left, it was just myself, Mike Hannaford, and Mike Kessman, the new assistant DPW director. And I let them know that Chris didn't want that. He wanted more interaction between conservation and himself. So we've decided not to put that out to anyone, although I told you tonight and everyone out there and our vast viewing audience. But I think that we're going to wait until Chris gets back and then make sure that he's okay with that part. But the second to that is we're going to do an internal conservation trails and town forest. And that would be something that the conservation office puts all of our requests in. The request would be tree down, mow Matera, pick up trash, change new barrel at lot 5, which is the new entrance to town forest. You know, these requests, all of them go in and they'll be recognized and sent out and assigned to people. It's a good way for us to let people know what we're looking for, have a record, but you know, and we have to keep on top of this because questions will come back and forth about locations and sizes and send pictures and I can't, you know, all that. So there's more work, but it sounds like at the end of the day, we can do, we can get, you know, an accurate assessment of how many requests the commission did and, you know, and make sure that things are happening on a timely basis. So that was good. And there was a little discussion about other things that are happening in town. I asked for more mulch, more bark wood chips at Sturgis Park. And also
So then we
Yellow Trail.
volunteers to go back there and take it the rest of the way out then.
There's no wood chips there yet, but the Sturgis.
But when they do, they're gonna extend.
They're going to extend it, yeah. So they thought that that was a job that they could end up doing. So that's why I did ask, and that's supposed to go into See-Click-Fix, but the internal stuff is not answered. It's set up yet, so I have to do an email. But yes, they're going to do stuff. So it was a productive but light meeting because Chris Cole wasn't there, and you know, I wasn't here, and DPW usually doesn't tell us about their projects anyway. So it's.
So was there any talk about them notifying them, getting back to us through you directly as opposed to See-Click-Fix?
So the thing about See-Click-Fix is, I guess Mike's crews can log in and say, just did this, just did that. So it's not all on Mike to answer when things are happening. You guys won't be able to, you know, sign in to the internal See-Click-Fix, but if you put in a request yourself, of course you will get an email, which I won't know about. So it'll be just like a resident putting in a See-Click-Fix request.
Well, I apologize for not making it to that meeting. I had managed to get the message that the July 2nd was canceled, but I didn't get it on my calendar that it was postponed to July 9. So I didn't read my email in time that day.
It wasn't a problem, but I think that if Brian was there was one thing Mike Hannaford was saying. He was saying all the reporting on the tree policy by the Conservation Commission So we have an approved tree policy about what happens in our different areas. He said the reporting in that policy was supposed to be, is noted as being in C-Click Fix. Now, I didn't recognize, that wasn't in my memory that we use C-Click Fix. We were supposed to report to people. The report was supposed to be made. And as a matter of fact, Andrew McNichol was making up a sheet for Mike Hannaford to fill out. So he turned around and said, supposed to be reported in C-Click Fix. I disagreed, but I think, you know, you and me worked on that together and we worked on it with DPW. So that's the only thing that was missing, but I don't mind them going through C-Click Fix as long as we can keep up with it. And it seems like something that Mike can do. So that was the piece that was missing. Mike Hannaford wasn't doing the reports.
And because there's records, it'll be clear and absolute as to what gets done, what gets requested and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's better. That was that.
Okay.
Chirag and Craig, do you have any idea what C-Click Fix is?
Yeah, it's the place where everybody in the portal can go and, you know, see a pothole, you see a tree down, you see this down. It's just sort of a way to get in touch with the DPW to let them know that something's happening around town. See something, say something.
Yeah,
He's the next chair.
there you go. Yeah, you understand the deal. Okay.
All right. Anything else on that? Okay,
That was,
bills approved.
yeah, so that's our typical yearly bill for Massachusetts
Hang on, Chuck.
Conservation Commissions.
I was gonna spell that out.
And at this year, it's $825. And I think that Bill always asks that he can have access to the handbook. And that's been provided, but not through the usual means. So Bill, I don't know what happened if you ended up last year paying for yourself, but they didn't see our request.
I did. It was nominal. It was $15. It was.
So what ended up happening is when I reached out, I said, you know, how do I log in? They said, well, you don't have a login, you're supposed to pay. And I said, we did pay. They did some looking. And from about, I don't know, a month ago, you in the conservation office have received next year's, a full year from last month's of the handbook. So.
Okay, I didn't know because when the year ended and I tried to log in, it said, you know, you no longer have access. So I thought, oh, I'll have to pay the $15 or whatever it is over what the commission pays. That's how they explained it to me last year. So
it should be straightened out, but I'm not saying that you're not going to have to let them know and get me involved, but it should be paid for this year.
Okay, great. Well, I'll check. Thank you.
And let me know if it isn't, because that's $15 on top of $825 is just too much.
Okay.
The other thing we pay our dues for is the trainings that they provide, and some of them are online, some of them are in person, and it's gives us a discount on the fees for those trainings, and they're well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lunch and learn. Two basic groups. There's core ones. Then there's the ones that think of electives in school. The core ones, they're the basics, like what is the wetlands policy about? Enforcement is one of my favorites, but anyway, so they're well worth looking at and getting familiar with what they offer.
And if I can just add a plug for them, for our new members, and thank you both for your willingness to serve. As the folks on the commission know, Chuck knows, I have reason to be familiar with state wetlands regulations nationwide and also the association involved. There's nothing like the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions in terms of the level of sophistication and quality. They were the first of their kind. Other states look to them as a leader. We're extremely fortunate to have them. So just wanted to make that plug as well.
Okay.
I don't have anything to say.
So we need to vote to approve.
You need to vote to approve that bill.
If somebody make a motion to approve Chuck paying those dues.
So
Great. This is Bill McCansell, second.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Bill McCants in favor?
Chirag Stalicker in favor.
Rick Telfman in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, any administrative report? Okay, minutes for approval. Now, I sent 6:12 minutes very late. I sent it to Chuck and Martha, so probably haven't gone out to you folks yet. We will not, we cannot talk about those. So then there's May 22nd, which was sent out quite some time ago. Obviously, you guys haven't seen it. So without them, without Tony, we still have 4 people, so we could vote to accept that. Are there any new comments to be made on the minutes from May 22nd?
I'm trying to remember if I ever looked at them. Am I the ones that wrote them?
Yes, I believe you were. So Ryan just sent me the ones he was writing.
Oh, yeah. I said a long
So
last,
Brian, you wrote the June 12th minutes?
eventually, yes.
That's the ones we just got. Okay, and today is,
So the way that'll work, in the next email that Chuck sends out for the next meeting, he puts in the minutes that we're going to approve. We would read my wonderful prose and be ready to send in comments. And whatever.
we already accepted the May 22nd minutes.
Oh, then maybe there's a problem with the agenda then. Okay, good.
Because on June 12th, I have notes that we accepted the minutes from May 22nd.
Okay, good. That was
Okay,
good.
so we don't have to do those.
So when emails go out from Chuck or anybody, do not reply all. And that's a violation of the open meeting law. If you have comments, great, back to the person who sent it. And then he can propagate that if necessary, depending on what the topic is.
So even the comments don't reply all?
Right, comments would be discussed here in front of everybody. So send them back to him.
Okay.
Because he's the one responsible, well, updating theoretically, but either way, it goes back to him, not to the whole set. And that's in general true about anything that gets sent out. No email conversations.
So June 26th minutes, we don't have yet either, is that right?
So Martha, I was only concentrating on what was on the agenda, so I don't, June 26th.
I think maybe the person who volunteered for that extremely short meeting, he was on vacation and hasn't got there yet.
Yeah, so, right, so we've approved May 22nd and we have no other minutes available to approve yet.
Right, so we are done for that for this evening.
Good, I'm just trying to figure out where we are here.
So it looks like we need from June 12th, 3 sets of minutes.
Right, which reminds me,
Tonight.
so who's gonna volunteer to do tonight's minutes?
I guess it's my turn. I will do.
And I'll see about recording secretary. That's what they're still called.
And be prepared for your turn after you've been here for a while. Depending on how long and how straightforward the hearings are, it can be a pain, doesn't have to be. Okay, with that, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn. Who wants to offer a motion to adjourn at 9:21?
Motion to adjourn, Craig Telfman.
I second that, Chirag.
Vote.
All right.
Unanimous,
We're out of here.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
9:21.
Great meeting all of you.
You want to turn the recording?
Yeah, I'm gonna shut this down. All right. See you later, Walter. See you later, everyone.
Bye-bye.